morning. My name is Sam Schultz. These are my partners.
I'm Sayla.
And I'm Arnold.
And we're presenting you guys exploring the impact of scholarship status on student motivation. Going into our agenda, we'll have some introduction information on scholarships and types of scholarships, then a research question, followed by our hypothesis for independent and dependent variables. We have our sample group and survey, followed by our descriptive analysis, our analysis results, and finish with some discussion and implication.
So the main benefit of scholarships is to help students pay for college, and these scholarships are given by like businesses and public and private universities, and they're like the main thing is to cover the tuition. And the U.S. Department of Education estimated to give out $46 billion in scholarships annually to students. Other than like the benefits to give to students, there's community and employer opportunities. The community is giving back, whether it's high school students or college students, to give money to students to help to pay for college. And some of these scholarships allow for internship opportunities for the students.
Looking at the different types of scholarships, the figure on the right will show different types of scholarships for different categories. But the most common you usually see are athletic and academics, followed by extracurricular, which can include students participating in art or music. Need-based scholarships, which usually are students who can prove they need financial assistance to pay for school. Employer scholarships, or company-sponsored, in other words, an employer sponsoring an employee to go to school. And then special performance scholarships, a good example could be the military, who offer scholarship opportunities in exchange for their services.
So this is a graph to show kind of where the money for scholarships comes from, with that $46 billion each year that was shown. The biggest ones are the public charity, the private foundations, and the community foundations. Kind of like Sam said, like the government and association and the for-profit are more like the need-based ones that students just apply for and they automatically get. Each scholarship you do have to apply for, and you also have to maintain eligibility throughout college. And these are just like, it just shows where all of the money is coming from, because there's a lot of money. And there's also, I'm sure we've all heard like the stat that there's a ton of money that isn't used for scholarships. So it's kind of an interesting graphic to look at.
Leading into our research question is, what is the impact of scholarships on students' academic performance and experience of financial stress throughout their college journey?
So now we're going to dive into our three hypotheses, and before I start, I want to mention that we have three of them. So for, let's say, first and the second one, we have GPA's dependent variable, and then stress would be a dependent variable in one of them, but independent in the other. So I just want to make sure you guys understand that. So the first one right here, you can see on the right, we have scholarship and GPA. It's a direct relationship. So scholarship is an independent variable and GPA is a dependent variable. So our first hypothesis is students who have a scholarship, which is contingent on them maintaining a certain GPA, it motivates them more for them to excel academically. So there's two studies that we looked at before to confirm our hypotheses. One of them is in 2005, and they researched how financial aid and scholarships affect those students, and they found a positive direct relationship, like we said. And then the second study was in 2014, and I'm gonna throw some numbers at you, and it showed that students who have a scholarship, they had a almost 0.3 higher GPA than students without. So meaning is one student would have a 3.5 GPA without a scholarship, and another student with a scholarship would have a 3.8. Our second hypothesis is an indirect relationship. We have a scholarship status would be our independent variable, and stress would be our dependent variable. So reception of scholarships and its availability have an inverse relationship and correlation with student stress levels. And when we talk about stress levels, it's obviously mental health, but it's also financial stress and financial burden from taking out loans. So here we just have one study, and that study was that found out that financial burden is the biggest stressor out of all the stressors in college for students. Financial burden is the biggest one. And our last hypothesis here has an indirect relationship as well. We have stress here as an independent variable and GPA is dependent. So as stress levels rise for students, their GPA would probably decrease. That's what we hypothesized. And we have a study from 2023 here, and that study mostly researched male and female students and how they react to stress, and it found actually out that female students react to stress more, and their GPA is decreasing more based on stress than males. But overall, the study confirmed that stress is a negative factor for GPA for students in general. And now our independent variables, like I said here, financial stress, which was used as an independent variable in our third hypothesis. So we measured it on a 5-point scale. 1 was strongly disagree, and 2 was disagree, 3 was neutral, 4 was agree, and 5 strongly agree. We used that because we found a study which is mentioned in our paper in 2012. They used a similar scale, and that's actually helped them to find out that borrowing money or such as loans was a top stressor for students. And we just want to understand that relationship as our 3 hypotheses, they're kind of together. All those variables are mixed in together, so we just want to understand the relation between them. And then our second independent variable is percentage of scholarship, or just status of scholarship, and that was used in hypothesis 1 and 2. So how we researched there in our survey, so we had a question if students have a scholarship, yes or no, just direct answer, and then if they click yes, they would have to put the amount, the percentage of scholarship they have, and then we had just kind of like a comment question where they can put which scholarship it was, like Sam said, it was academic, maybe it's athletic scholarship and so on.
And our dependent variables for hypothesis 1 and 3 was GPA, and you can see below that's the question we used to get that information. And like Artem mentioned, we had different dependent variables depending on the hypothesis. So stress was our dependent variable for hypothesis 2, and we also used a 5-point scale, 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree. This helped us obviously measure stress as well as possibly the students' mental health and the difference between the two.
So now I want to talk about our sample group and survey plan. So we only distributed the survey to NMU students, and being said, because we thought that at NMU we have the same majors, we have the same classes, and same scholarships given out, so we didn't want to mix in, students from different universities, because that would, we thought, mix our results, because they have different majors and it could affect us. So we distributed the survey to students from 18 to 30 years old, just because if you look at that bar chart on the right, you can see that that's the majority of population in college are from 18 to 30. And Sam's going to talk later about how many students took the survey and what percentages. Also, I want to talk about how we distributed it. We distributed it through social media for the majority of it. Although I want to mention that we didn't get the target amount of students. We got a low amount of 64 only, and that affected our models, which we'll talk later about.
So looking at descriptive analysis of the survey, starting with gender, it was about even between male and female. GPA, we noticed most of the students who took the survey had a higher GPA between 3.51 and 3.99. Even 2.51 and 3.0 is relatively low, but not that low for depending on the student. And then the employment status, this is a correlation with stress if you have to worry about being somewhere at a certain time rather than just school.
So going into how we got the results, we used a simple regression analysis, and this is used to predict the value of the independent and dependent variables. So we used that for each of our 3 hypotheses. And we used this because we thought it would best interpret our results based on our research, and then we used the SPSS to get that research. And this was impactful for us to interpret our results just so we could see that correlation and if all the hypotheses did work out the way we thought they would.
So this is our first, this is our model for our first hypothesis, and if you look at the R-square value, it's pretty low, meaning which is only 0.2% of all the results can be predicted by that model, which is very low obviously. And also our p-value was way higher than 0.05, which says that, you know, this model does not help to predict students' GPA, so that hypothesis didn't really, wasn't legitimate, I would say. So for the second one, that's the one that we thought was the best one for our research, because as you can see, the R-square value is pretty high, so it's almost 30.5%. So we think that scholarship status is a good predictor of stress. And low p-value obviously validates the model. And also I want to state that students with a scholarship, they reported over 4 points less stress on average. Like I mentioned, that we used the 5-point scale, so they would report a 4-point less stress level than students without a scholarship. And the last one right here, it was actually, our hypothesis didn't work out as well on this one because we believe that we got such a low amount of students. So our R-square value was 0, and then our p-value was high as well on that one. So no relationship was found in that hypothesis.
So to get into the discussion of our results and the implication discussion, as Artem just mentioned, the only one that showed a link was between scholarship status and being a predictor of stress with the scholarship status for hypothesis 2. So as this graphic kind of shows, as the amount of scholarship that a student is receiving, their stress goes down, and vice versa. So if your stress is lower, then you're going to have like a higher scholarship. And then, just like he said, students receiving scholarships reported over 4 points less stress on average. And the implication of our studies, there's an impact was to better understand how scholarships affect college students' motivation and to achieve academic success and measure the financial stress. We thought that a good target audience that could look at our results was just the public audience, meaning to target this, they could understand more of what college students are going through. This could create awareness of how students can use scholarships, and as well as community members. So if they want to sponsor a scholarship from either a personal scholarship or their employer, even if they don't have a university within their community, they can also help the high schoolers out. And that wraps everything up, and then we'll take